Well, another film studio just imploded in its own little way, and this is from a studio that barely had even gotten started. Ironically enough, bringing out some of my favorite movies of recent years, Hasbro is no longer financing any of their films in future. They've given up before they've even started. Despite the fact that Transformers 1 is legitimately one of the top 5 greatest movies of this year, I would say, in the animated form at least. Not to mention Dungeons & Dragons last year, even in live action, was a pretty damn good adaptation and had a lot of things going for it. It was highly well regarded by a lot of audiences, despite clearly somehow having the magic to create genuine good cinema experiences of the IPs that they've somehow commandeered and bought over in big mega corpo ways. Somehow, even the film industry just isn't quite enough for the greedy schmucks at the top of the corporate ladder. Because while these movies may be great pieces of quality, they just didn't make enough money, so they're cutting it entirely. Existing mainly because their big rivals Mattel made super successes on the Barbie movie, which to be fair is its own super viral mega magic of a movie. To have that and then immediately give up a year and a bit later? It's quite shameful, to be honest. I was rooting for this. These guys have honestly done some of my favorite things of recent years. But at the end of the day, Hasbro as a brand, as a company, has always had a bit of a dodgy reputation on actual business deeds. On top of the Dungeons & Dragons movie and Transformers 1 very recently, we also just a couple weeks ago talked about their complete mismanagement of the Power Rangers IP that they own. Full on deciding to cancel everything Power Rangers, comics, shows, nothing in animation for sure, and just setting everything up for a simple same-priced auction for every individual item. This is a company that loves to anger its fans by just doing all of the worst things possible to appease the shareholders making maximum profits. And since the latest Transformers 1 movie only made a small success in $129 million, they've cut it at the head. Despite the fact that the very reason it probably did underperform was because of the fact that it was marketed poorly in the first place and completely missed the idea and general core premise that would have people interested in this movie in the first place. But if you make a misstep on day one, no chance of reviving it in a sequel or making it a franchise anyway, despite having a clear, uproarious fan base for it, no, just do it early. And it's funny, I've not actually had a proper chance to talk about this Hasbro news since I've had an upload slot booked for every day of the week and probably will do for the rest of the year at this point. But since this news came out and I'm finally getting around to record and talk about it, this isn't even the latest reason that Hasbro's been in the news, as apparently Elon Musk wants to buy Dungeons & Dragons now. God, what a horrendous timeline we're in. I mean, thankfully that doesn't really affect on-the-ground D&D players. You just keep what you've got, ignore the rules of the top brass. You're probably already doing that anyway. But even still, with fellow rivals like Disney taking live-action remakes and endless sequels as their MO going forwards, Pixar similarly learning that sequels are the way to make the most success, DreamWorks making a live-action re-adaptation with a shot-for-shot exact same trailer design, and the last 3 movies left to come out this year are Mufasa, an original-ish live-action sequel, Sonic 3, a third of a sequel, and then Wallace and Gromit, continuing a franchise further. With so many varying degrees of super corporate ways to go forward, I think it's incredibly impressive that Hasbro are no longer paying for any of their toy movies so preemptively. Now apparently this doesn't delete toy movies entirely, instead you've just gotta pay a licensing fee. As CEO Chris Cox, God what a name, essentially said that you're welcome to pay for the privilege of using one of our existing IP movies, but show us the money. I guess it shouldn't really be surprised considering these are toy companies we're dealing with, the ones that are making the absolute most corporate moves to the absolute most bare minimum mass production, copy and paste until the money runs out of space in a room kind of people. Ironically, it turns out that the CEO's new vision for Hasbro is still in becoming a multimedia company because they maxed out toys and have to go further. So their idea now is they're gonna go into the video game department because God is dead and there's nothing else to go to. And I honestly can't wait. I can't imagine what heinous decisions they're going to be making. To be honest, the only thing I see is the Funko Pop video game. That's what pops up in my head. And to be fair, I think I've heard good things about it. But, like, really? This is where we're going? Maybe this shouldn't really be a surprise. Chris Cox's history apparently comes from Microsoft. This guy is very much not one of us. This is not a company built by nerds. More geeks. That's totally different. Typically, the business model for a Hasbro movie is they help co-finance a given film alongside with the main production company involved. In recent years, it's been Paramount, but others include Sony Group Corporation or Lionsgate Entertainment, you know, that kind of thing. But now they're cutting out their side of the deal. They really don't want to put in any effort. They have no interest in doing a vaguely risky investment for a chance of profit if there's not a 100% guarantee. And with video games, you can hit the demographic of both kids and adults. Wow! Or as one article puts it, taking a greater share of consumers' leisure time. Yay! A direct quote we have from the CEO is, "We want to reach fans where they want to play, and increasingly that is through digital expressions of their favorite brands. I.e., these damn 80s kids don't play with plastic anymore. We have to follow them into the screen and never let them go. But not fully follow them to the screen. The big screen is not enough money for us." And it's a real shame as well, because that means any murmurings of a sequel to Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is now shot. I thought that was a genuine great adaptation. I also just really liked the cast and the characters that were introduced, and it was a nice way of telling the D&D formula in a way that wasn't so overt. You know, you could appreciate it whether you knew about the movie or not. Hey there, thank you for making it halfway through this video. Come along and subscribe if you want to keep up with business news, I guess. Film production talk. And as we may mention a little later on, maybe some coverage of the Game Awards in future. Anyway, if you're subscribed, let's see the second half of the video. And same with Transformers 1, I absolutely adored the universe that that world set up. As someone who hadn't seen a Transformers movie before, to be able to be introduced for the first time and open up to a whole new element that visually looks great and writing-wise is, you know, pretty decent and definitely opens up for more in the future, with so much potential that is something that so many animated movies cannot grasp as of recent years. These guys were a rare surprise beacon of, wow, they could actually do something with this. And then they just chose not to. Legitimately, Transformers 1 might be one of my favorite movies of the entire year, maybe number one, but absolutely nothing can come without a notable asterisk of negativity attached to it. After such a heinous reputation and history for decades and decades in trying to make it a cinematic experience, thank you Michael Bay, the moment it got good, it gone entirely. I mean, hey, maybe they'll pick it up themselves, maybe Paramount will double their investment or something, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. Because one way or another, Transformers 1 does count as a box office flop, blame the marketing team. Against a rival like Barbie, there really is no competition. But don't worry, if you are looking for movies based on toy brands, Mattel have certainly got you covered, as they announced like 2 years ago, straight after Barbie, that they're making like 48 of them. Uno. I actually can't remember many other Mattel toys. They're very specific. It's like not Hot Wheels, but like 2 Hot Wheel knockoffs. Every movie under the sun's being made there. Oh yeah, they also had in their production schedule a G.I. Joe movie, as well as G.I. Joe collaborating with Transformers, which, oh, wait, a little bit of a red flag to try and make a cinematic universe in the 2020s. But yeah, no, that's probably gone now as well. Or I would assume so. Maybe they're not fully cancelled. And I guess if they are, I could make a nice old cancelled episode about it. But it just isn't looking good. And it's so frustrating, because I really enjoyed the quality of these movies. Not to mention, despite, you know, tailoring away over to video games, their actual toy brands also having issues with Elon Musk breathing down their shoulders. It's just not great on all forms. It's terrible to be a Hasbro fan. Thankfully, I'm not a Hasbro fan. They seem absolutely incompetent, if this week didn't prove it already. And even on the actual business of the toy front as well, in other directions, apparently it's not been looking good, with a boom apparently being reported for the sale of toys like Marvel and Star Wars, which Hasbro owns the rights to, at least for the merchandising side of things. And that boom has very much faded since people have come out of the pandemic and the lockdown, with things being even more so on the low that apparently the company has laid off over 1,000 employees, as well as moving its headquarters over to somewhere else. Like, just across the board, businesses are imploding here. So what's the goal with the video game thing, huh? Well, it's only very small so far. Well, Hasbro does already have a couple of video games out, all things that they own the rights to, the main one being Monopoly Go, which apparently has brought in over $100 million already this year. Monopoly, the game that really does just run with its ironic title, unironically. But also, I came to find out that Hasbro actually owns the rights to Baldur's Gate 3, which I guess makes sense because they own Dungeons & Dragons and it's all connected somewhere by another company called Wizards of the Coast. And Baldur's Gate 3, that as well brought in $100 million for Hasbro in its first 6 months, statistically. So clearly they've got places to go, but one way or another, ironically, this seems to be the company that owns so many many things that it's almost like they can't go wrong. I want to say everything they make is a super success, at least in quality. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 as well. Game of the Year, an incredible Dungeons & Dragons based game. It's just a matter of whether it makes enough profit for them that decides whether it gets to stick around. And apparently what we know for future Hasbro video game projects, we have Exodus, who is made by the same developers from Baldur's Gate, BioWare. There is a G.I. Joe movie in pre-production, a video game version of Magic the Gathering Commander, as well as a new Dungeons & Dragons video game in some sort of form. And an overall goal in future is to make 1 to 2 video games every single year, investing somewhere between $100 and $150 million every year for future projects. So, it's a new direction, terrible for me as an animation fan, but maybe plus for video games? Always gonna be steeped in controversies and cancellations. But also, hey, this is making me think that I should do some coverage of the Game Awards, so that might be coming soon. I have an urge now talking about video game future productions. I just find it so ironic that after just discovering the new Hasbro animated movie logo they had with several different IP toy brands all merging into one, it's as good as gone. Hopefully there'll be some good faith actors and creative producers who want to invent things and make it happen via brute force, but the actual monopolizing monster of a company that's able to platform these things even more is keeping hands off. Disappointment through and through, but hey, that's business. On that note, no, I'll add Chris Cox as a list of CEOs I need to be keeping an eye on apparently. But otherwise, for now, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this little rant. Tell me what you think about this Hasbro change in plan. Will you support Hasbro video games? You think they're better off not making movies against Mattel, the beast that is Barbie? Do you think they're gonna flop after 40 attempts of terrible slapped together adaptations? I'd love to hear all your thoughts on these business decisions, and I shall see you in a little bit.